Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of the Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network. We're going to talk about a couple things today, including the Respect for Marriage Act, and we're also going to talk about gun stuff, which is what Corey and I were talking about in the back chat a little bit here. As you were saying, we were talking about Bloomberg, every town now trying to sue Daniel Defense over their gun being used in that massacre at Uvalde, Texas elementary school.
Which is fucking stupid. I mean, it's like the parents suing Winchester and the Sandy Hook, but that was kind of a different story, which I don't even agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's not fucking Winchester's fault that some fucking psycho used a product of theirs that still is, in my opinion, very suspect on how he acquired that. Considering, on one hand, I've heard he didn't have a job, but on the other hand, I heard he worked fast food. There's no way on a fast food salary he can afford two expensive fucking rifles.
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about the guy in Uvalde, not the guy in Sandy Hook.
Yes,
No. I'm just clarifying that for the audience out there.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, the dude that did Uvalde, no, there's no way he could afford that kind of money.
The Daniel offense alone is what, like fucking $2,000?
It depends. I've seen them anywhere from like about $1,200 to like anywhere from like $2,000 to $2,200 or so, give or take. So yeah, I think he had basically one of the base ones, which was like around like $1,000 to $1,200 somewhere in there.
And then
even that, like, yeah, that would have been a lot.
Yeah, and then you got the 6 hour, which was the same price, give or take. You know.
Yeah, pretty close.
So you're looking at, just say on a generous side, $2,000 to $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. Yeah, about $3,000 or so. 3 to 4 is what I meant to say, but yeah,
probably like if you include like mags and ammo and stuff, it's probably like $3,500 or so, give or take.
Yeah, and didn't he also have an optic on one or both?
I think maybe. I think it might have came with one, actually. The one that I think maybe he swapped one with the other is what it was.
Maybe. But anyways, I mean, if it would have been for that stupid fucking Sandy Hook case, I don't think you would have even seen someone trying to sue a gun manufacturer.
Well, the thing is, and this is something I've noticed with Bloomberg and company now, is they know that they've lost for the most part at state levels. That's why you're seeing constitutional carry be passed everywhere and everything else like that. After the Dayton massacre here, in the last, I think, like 18 months or so, one of the guys who was a survivor, it was his stepfather. I think his stepfather is the guy that was killed in that. And he's been like this huge anti-gunner guy trying to be like, oh, this is why Ohio shouldn't pass constitutional carry because my, dead father and all this other stuff like that. And it's like, bro, that's exactly why we should pass it, to make sure it doesn't happen again. Yep. And they're using him as basically like their lead dude in the lawsuit. And then a few of the other people's like aunts and uncles and everything else like that to try to go after, I think it's KCI that made the 100-round drum.
It's all fucking bullshit, but it's kind of funny with KCI because, they make shitty mags anyway.
Yeah. And then you had Highlands, was it Highland Park? That one a few months back as well in Illinois there. They're trying to go after those. I forget if it's the gun companies or if it's the mag companies or both in that one as well.
But for what reason? Just because they can?
Yeah, pretty much. It's because I think if I had to guess big picture wise, it's because Bloomberg and them have known that they've lost the actual debate at the actual level at this point, like state level especially. Mm-hmm. And their only recourse at this point is either buying off politicians, which we can prove that they're doing at this point, especially in the state of Ohio with Allison Russo, who needs to be investigated come the next General Assembly here in this state for bribery and everything else like that. And they don't have, they technically could throw her out next General Assembly because they have the votes then is what it is. They can't do it yet though, because they're like too shy of doing a 2/3 majority on her. But yeah, so she definitely, like, even if it wasn't an envelope full of cash, she took an envelope of some kind from Moms Demand Action in May of 2021 during House Oversight Committee on Constitutional Carry. And the fact that she was willing to be so like chummy and like sort of shady about it, like I'm like, what is in that envelope, lady? Like that should be that should be investigated itself right there to determine what the hell was in that. But Yeah, like it would not surprise me at least they were bribing her, because I mean, there's also one guy, I forget if it was a state senator or state rep out of Florida, who straight up admitted that Bloomberg paid him money to vote a certain way. And it's like, how are you not in prison for this?
Right.
But yeah, I think their big thing is, and they're all actually, the one thing I noticed with this election cycle as well is they were trying to run a lot of candidates who were actually MDA affiliated or Giffords or something else like that. It was their so-called volunteers and stuff like that. They were trying to push in there in different seats in different state districts and stuff like that. And they accomplished that in some cases. I think Colorado had a couple fall that way. I know California has, I believe, at least one or two that got in their General Assembly that way this year. They tried like 3 or 4 here in Ohio, and all of them lost handedly to people that were incumbents, which was just hilarious because you had one that was like an 18 or 19-year-old kid who was March for Our Lives affiliated and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm so glad I got Sherrod Brown's endorsement and everything else like that. And it's like, bro, you are the exact reason why we need automatic disqualifications on seats of power in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And
but back to what we were saying a while ago, I have no problem with these parents suing the shit out of fucking Uvalde police and any other official that was there that day, including the FBI and whoever the handlers and all that. I'm fine with all that. Just leave Daniel Defense out. And on the caveat to that is I hope Daniel Defense has a whole fucking deep pocket team of lawyers that'll just squash this shit before it ever gets off the ground, so to speak. Because I'm sorry, Daniel Defense is a bigger company and more they're more bougie, so they got plenty of money, so they would stand a better chance than Winchester. It was Winchester. What that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It wasn't even like the thing with the Sandy Hook lawsuit is it wasn't even Winchester like being like, okay, we know we did wrong here or whatever. Like, we're gonna give you this money. It was a bunch of like lawyer people who had bought out the remnants of the company after it went bankrupt, and were like, okay, we'll settle this lawsuit. Here's like $77 million. Like, please stop coming after like whatever's left here is what it is. And that's when you had Winchester basically broken up into parts. Half of it was sold to, I believe, Federal for ammo making and stuff like that. Another part was sold to Marlin. Or no, not Marlin. Marlin was sold to Ruger, I believe is what it was. And then a couple other different things here went to different other gun companies and stuff like that. Like all the manufacturing went, like the tools and tooling and stuff like that all went to different places, what it was, and like 4 or 5 different things. What is it? Vance Outdoors, I think that's what it's called. Or Venture Outdoors?
Adventure Outdoor.
Yeah. They were the ones, they were like the mega corporation that bought up a lot of it is what it was, and then put it in their subsidiaries like your Federals and stuff like that is what it was.
And the reason they got sued was not because of the gun being used there. It was for the way they advertised.
Yeah, it was the marketing. And that's exactly why they're trying to go after Daniel Defense now, too, is what it is. Because they're like, oh.
Daniel Defense doesn't market the way that Winchester was marketing. Daniel Defense is more for like the more experienced shooters, military. I mean, more the upper class, in my opinion, because their shit's so damn expensive.
Well, let's go ahead and just read the article I have popped up here, and we'll see exactly what it says about the whole thing. Because I know it's supposed to be something about they wanted to go after him because of being like, oh, like this targets kids and video games and crap like that. But yeah, it said every town files lawsuit against Daniel Defense, gun store, and police officers. I'm sorry. The FFL should also be left out of that whole thing, dude, because it's like they were just selling a gun to a person that passed the background check.
Yeah, no, the FFL shouldn't be in it at all because they have no. I mean, they're just the mediator. It's like, are you going to fucking sue the mediator of a debate if the debate goes south?
Well, it'd be like the same thing with suing a car salesman or the car dealership because they sold somebody a car and they went drunk driving after that.
Yeah. Or suing a utensil company because a fork made them fat.
Yeah. Anyway, it says, Mike Bloomberg affiliate Every Town for Gun Safety filed a lawsuit over the May 24, 2022. I didn't realize it was only 6 months ago that happened. I was thinking it was last year. Man, time does fly in this country anymore.
Yeah. So much shit happens constantly that.
Yeah, Uvalde Elementary School shooting. In the suit, they claim Daniel Defense filed, quote, to act to responsibly prevent the deadly attack. which is BS in himself. It says Everytown filed suit on behalf of Sandra Torres, whose 10-year-old daughter, Elihana, I think it's how pronounce it, Eliahna.
Highlight it. Where is it?
It's right here.
Yeah, Eliahana.
Yeah. Torres was killed in the Uvalde attack. Said suit targets Daniel Defense, whose model DD4 or DDM4 V7 rifle, which is like the baseline one, if I'm not mistaken, like the $1,200 version, was used in the attack. Uvalde gun store, Otis Outback, where the attacker passed a FBI background check before taking possession of his firearms that day. It wasn't that day. It was just, whatever, a couple weeks, like a week before that, whatever it was. It says Everytown in Torres' suit also targets the city of Uvalde, the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, and the county of Uvalde, the Uvalde Police Department, the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Department, the Uvalde County Sheriff's Office, the Uvalde County Constables, and the Texas Department of Public Safety. In the suit, Everytown claims that Daniel Defense markets its product in a manner that encouraged their illegal misuse. What a bunch of shit.
It's a bunch of crock. It's a bunch of. Yeah, I'm so pissed off I can't even speak properly. It's bullshit.
Yeah, the suit is Torres versus Daniel Defense, number 222 CV 00059 in the U.S. court in the Western District of Texas. So I don't know. The fact that it's in a Texas, what circuit court is Texas in? I keep forgetting.
Fifth. We're fifth.
I know they've done some good 2A rulings and stuff like that, so it might go to that kind of thing where it goes to a circuit court and just gets, tossed out basically.
Hopefully. But my question is, what fucking gun control, anything that's been proposed over the last few years, say it went into act, what would have stopped that mass shooting? None of it. Yeah. You just said those guns were purchased legally, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. He passed two background checks for them.
Exactly. They were bought legally. I'm sorry. Even if you could have all the gun control in the world, and people still will follow the law. Let's say hypothetically, and we're still follow the letter of the law. Evil is gonna fucking do whatever it wants, regardless of laws, because they don't care about laws. They laugh at them. Criminals inherently don't care. So nothing's going to stop evil from doing evil.
And the one thing I remember quite a bit after this whole thing, I think I remember them saying this on the mainstream media, was something along the lines of like, well, this is why we should have like, you can only buy X amount of ammo at one time because the guy had so much ammo on him. And it's like, what the fuck?
I go back to, never mind. It's irrelevant what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, but, it's stupid shit, honestly.
Yes, it makes literally no fucking sense at all. It's just they're wanting to blame anyone and everyone possible because they lost a child. And I get that. I can't imagine what they're going through in this moment, but they're going after the wrong people. What they need to do is go after the government for not protecting their children properly. And I would go after like the school resource officers for one, for not being, not going after the criminal. They all the cops were fucking 100% cowards that day. There was like 270 or 200 something.
Oh, there was like 400 something cops in that school.
It was over 400 cops. Yeah, it was like 470 police. And it took one guy that wasn't even part of it to go in there and end it because he was at a barbershop next door.
Well, the real problem is
they turned on their own immediately too, because remember that one cop was there and his wife was in there bleeding out, dying, and he wanted to go in, but they took his gun away from him and sent him back outside.
Well, the biggest issue when we saw the video finally come out is you had the actual attacker running to the school, and those cops were on his tail like a couple seconds later. Like they could have easily went in there and just blown his fucking brains out right then and there.
Exactly. They chose not to because they're fucking cowards.
I think there's a lot more nefarious things to it. Honestly, personally, I think there's a lot more nefariousness to it because of the fact that you notice how. Right after that, they're like, this is why we need to pass more gun control. This is why we need red flag laws everywhere.
I hate to say it, but I think there was an alternative motive to it because they let it happen so they could further their political agenda about getting rid of all the guns and leaving us defenseless so they can throw us back into servitude, be their servants, that we have to bow down to them. That's all they want. They want absolute control over us. They want absolute power, absolute control. Because they're evil pieces of shit. And they don't care who dies or who gets hurt. I'm sick of the fucking games. I'm sick of the bullshit. If they really wanted to protect children, they would do constitutional carrying nationwide. They would fucking put, I mean, they don't have to put police inside of schools. I guarantee if you asked veterans who served, who have children or, you know, whatever, ask them, say, hey, we'll pay you this much money if you guard our children, the nation's children. How many of them would jump at the opportunity? Because after that, after the school shootings and stuff, over the years, I've seen videos and pictures where fucking vets and shit went and stood outside of the schools. Not just at the ones that were shot up, but their own children's schools. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, I was going to address one of the comments in the comment section there. So I just looked it up there, and they said that there was 315 rounds of ammo found inside the school. So I'm guessing that would be spent shell casings, maybe. So yeah, that's like 10 something, 11 mags somewhere in there. It's like at least an entire plate carrier worth, and then some more.
Okay, in actual reality, 3 or 4 mags isn't a lot, but it is a lot when you consider
unarmed people.
Yes, and had there been armed teachers in that school that, you know, gone through the background checks, the training, because I'm sorry, a teacher, unless there's someone like us, aren't familiarized with guns, but if they put them through the correct training, if it was just one, they could have had a better chance and not so many people died that day. But they don't want to do what's right and what's obvious and what's logical. They want chaos and anarchy so they can further their political agenda.
Exactly. And then on the flip side of this whole thing, we had another story of lawsuits come out here in the last day or so, which is a Walmart employee sues Walmart, claiming she complained about alleged mass murderer months before the attack happened. Says a Walmart employee who survived the November 22nd, 2022 shooting filed a $50 million lawsuit on Tuesday, claiming Walmart failed to act appropriately 2 months ago when she said she complained about the guy who committed the attack. So Breitbart noted the alleged attacker had been with the company since 2010. He began firing on coworkers in the store's break room on November 22nd, killing 6 of them. Left behind a death note in which he talked about being led by Satan, and wherein he also suggested bitter seed apricots cure cancer.
Okay.
That's fucking weird.
But didn't he also make a statement before that? I don't know the timeline before it, but that he said, if y'all fired me, I will come back and...
Yeah, he said he was going to come back and shoot the place up, yes.
Yes, I thought so.
And then it said Hill and the Associated Press reported Walmart employee Dondra Parlu, not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but who cares, indicates that she filed a complaint against the killer 2 months before the shooting. Her lawsuit claims she filed a complaint using Walmart's Global Ethics Statement form, noting that the mass murderer had bizarre and inappropriate commented on her age. The suit claims that the dude had also picked on her, calling her poor and being short, and also called her a bitch multiple times. Suit further claims that he threatened violence and said that he would that people would remember his name. So, yeah. Needless to say, I think she has a good suit in that, actually, to be honest with you.
I think she's got a damn good lawsuit on that.
And there's also
more legal standing than the fucking parents filling Daniel defense.
Yeah. There's also another one I want to talk about before we get to the actual marriage thing here, which is in the next week or so, you will most likely see Ohio Patriot Education Network versus the City of Columbus in a lawsuit over preemption. Because as of 8 days ago, you got Columbus Council pushing, quote, common sense gun control proposals forward amid legal dispute. This was from Columbus Dispatch on the 23rd of November. Say Columbus residents and those impacted by so-called gun violence spoke in favor of proposed gun legislation package during a public hearing a week and a half ago. As city officials say they have a narrow opportunity amid the legal dispute, said survivors of different attacks and stuff like that shared what they contained are laws that fail to protect people from the epidemic of individual shootings, too often resulting in escalating verbal disagreements and mass shootings, like the one over the weekend in the Club Q attack. Proposed Columbus gun control measures announced earlier this month prohibit ordinary citizens possessing, quote, large caliber ammunition magazines containing more than 30 rounds, requires safe storage of firearms when minors could reasonably be in danger of handling them. And I think there was another one too as well. It's a proposed prohibition. There we go. Proposed prohibitions would also target, quote, straw man gun sales, where people who can legally purchase firearms do so for those who cannot, which is already illegal at this point federally, and you can get 10 years for doing straw purchasing. So there you go. And it goes on from there, basically talk about some stuff. But yeah, it was idiot Mayor Ginther and multiple city council people that basically went on a whole tirade about this. During that meeting, it's supposed to be, I believe, the 5th or 6th, which is next week. And yeah, it'll be the next day. If they try to push this shit, I will file a lawsuit against their asses because I'm sick and tired of this. They have broken, and I'm the kind of person that, like, this lawsuit will end Ginther's career as well as the rest of these assholes because of the fact that it's like they have already been sued multiple times for breaking state preemption law at this point. Enough is enough of this crap. It's time for your asses to go to prison for a while now. Or at least be out of office forever is what it is.
Honestly, how many of these fucking laws that these leftist piece of shits are trying to ram through all the time are already actually a law in the books? Or even just the leftists that want laws passed, they're already laws on the books.
So there was one here after Dayton happened in 2019, and it was Cecil Thomas, who should have been out of office entirely this year with term limits in our state Senate. But then he ran on the opposite side of the thing for our state house now and won unopposed is what it was, which is a problem there entirely. Again, why have term limits if you're just going to be able to flip-flop our General Assembly? Stupid. But yeah, the entire point is, though, he, along with other people, and by the way, he is definitely a paid employee of Bloomberg at this point, was like, oh, well, we want to ban the bump stocks and it raised the age limits and all this other stuff like that with, like, random universal background check crap was what they were trying to push at the time. And like half the stuff in there was already federal law at this point. Like it was already like basically just doubling down on stuff that already existed federally. The only thing it didn't was having like universal background check stuff, which is never going to fly here because we're not going to allow government to create a fucking registry of our shit is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I mean, I can attest to the fact that the FBI already has a registry of everything ever bought in FL because they had a registry of stuff they were checking off the day that they federally swatted me. So there you go. But yeah, so there is that. So if you've ever bought a gun from FFL, just know that it's already on a registry someplace, which is not cool and totally unconstitutional illegal. So it's also why I like private sales more anymore because of that reasoning. So. But anyway, so going on to our main story here, which is obviously the thing that was passed out of the U.S. Senate the other day, which was and we're going to bring up this story here. Senate rejects Senator Mike Lee's Religious Liberty Amendment, passes so-called Respect for Marriage Act. As I said, Senate rejected Senator Mike Lee's Religious Liberty Amendment, as well as amendments from Senators James Langford and Marco Rubio, and passed the so-called Respect for Marriage Act on Tuesday evening. Same-sex marriage bill passed 61 to 36. There was 3 people that were not on the vote. Apparently, Randolph Warnock was one of them, as well as I believe it was Pat Toomey, and I forget who the third one was. It was one of the guys that's retiring, if I'm not mistaken. Like Burr maybe or something. But the thing is, though, even with this passing, if you go by the factoid of the fact that Warnock and Ossoff are both legally holding office right now, the fact that John Ossoff's name's on this makes it unconstitutional to begin with and completely null and voids the entire legislation. That being said, even with him out of it, if they took his name off of it or whatever the case be, they would still technically have the 60 because of 12 rhinos that were like, oh yeah, we're cool with this. So, and of course, Rob Portman, that's retiring in the year, is one of them. Can't wait for JD Vance to take that seat for the new year, honestly. But yeah, it said, same-sex marriage bill passed 61 to 36 with the help of the same 12 Republicans who initially voted with Democrats to advance the bill out of actual committee thing. Legislation will now go back to the House for a vote as early as would have been Tuesday, and I don't think they've voted on it yet, so it would probably be like this either today or tomorrow probably was when they're going to do it then. Where it first passed over the summer with the help of 49 Republicans passing it to the Senate at that point. But it said House GOP will have to decide whether they want to pass the FRMA with the newly added No Impact on Religious Liberty and Conscience Amendment created by bipartisan, I love what they say bipartisan because they're not, a group of senators who say that the text projects religious liberty. Critics were added the amendment brought by Senators Tammy Baldwin, Christine Sinema, Susan Collins, Rob Portman, and Tom Tillis say it would provide nothing that is not already granted and is an unnecessary piece of legislation that provides for lawsuits against those who simply hold a different view on marriage. Supposedly, as you know, NEA was reading last night on his show, it just doesn't allow federal government to discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at face value, you know, that's what it should be. My thing is, though, why would you, if this is such a big fucking deal for these people, why would you wait until after the midterm elections when you know you're going to lose a chamber and you're in a lame duck session right now for a couple of weeks where you have this chance to basically pull this crap instead of just passing it like, I don't know, 6 months ago? It just seems very, very shady. Very shady timing is what it seems like to me, honestly.
I agree.
Anyway, it says Lee's amendment was conservatives' greatest hope of shoring up religious liberty protections in the bill and would have prohibited the federal government from punishing individuals, organizations, nonprofits, and other entities based on their sincerely held religious beliefs or moral convictions about marriage by prohibiting the denial or revocation of tax-exempt status, licenses, contracts, benefits, etc. And then you got Mike Lee that was there talking. He said, who wouldn't want to deny the federal government the authority to retaliate against religious individuals and institutions in a way that is categorically abusive? Said Lee's amendment needed 60 votes and failed by a 48 to 49 vote. Although several of the 12 senators who voted with the Democrats to advance the bill voted in favor of it, said James Langford's amendment, which needed a simple majority vote, was also rejected by a 45 to 52 vote, as was Marco Rubio's. And I kind of looked into the Langford one, and Langford's basically was sort of similar. It was basically making it so that you couldn't, discriminate against like straight people, essentially is what it was at the end of the day. Or if it's like, hey, we don't want to bake your wedding cake, whatever it is, like you're not going to discriminate against us, try to file like frivolous lawsuits against us and stuff like that. Which is where I kind of came in on that whole thing. Because, like that's where I thought it was like a big hubbub about it and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, is that what's going to be targeting here? And
they probably will.
I don't know. It maybe. But as I said here, it said, RMFA was introduced following Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade due to Democrats' unfounded concerns that the Supreme Court would use the Dobbs decision to overrule the court's Orbenfall gay marriage decision of 2015. Overall, the RMFA would repeal the Clinton era Defense of Marriage Act and require the federal government to recognize any marriage that was valid in the place where it was entered into. Bill would additionally require every state to recognize same-sex marriage laws or same-sex marriages that, quote, is valid in the state where the marriage was entered into. So you don't actually do gay marriage in your state. It's basically just like, okay, if, Vermont recognizes gay marriage and you would come to Ohio or Texas or whatever the case be, it has to be like validated that yes, you are married in the state now or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, continues on here and said the bill also has a quote private right of action clause, which would allow any person who is harmed by a violation of subsection B to bring a civil action in the appropriate district court of the United States against the person who violated such a subsection for declaratory or injunctive relief. And that's where I think my whole concern of it was as well, was that whole piece of the legislation, because it just it's so vague. It's so vague.
It is.
It said, likewise, attorney generals would also be able to bring civil actions against any person who violates that law as well. And that's another thing, too, by the way. When you have state AGs being like, no, we're going to bring a lawsuit against you because you're discriminating against these people, like, what the fuck? So, yeah, I just feel like it's going to be used maliciously, is what it is. Like, if it was just like, and this is the thing, too, if it was just like government being like, hey, we just want, because it's not, the thing is, it's not only gay marriage that's covered underneath this, it's also, interracial marriage and stuff like that as well. And my thing of it is, it's like, okay, if that's what it's all about, like, why do this in the middle of the night kind of thing? Like, why wait until a lame duck session? Why not bring this forward, 3-4 years ago? I mean, hell, I think this is another article I brought about it here because it was talking about Jerry Nadler apparently introduced something similar to this like in 2009. And it's like, bro, you guys had the presidency, the House and the Senate at the time. Why not just put this through then?
Because they don't carry it. Back then, it wasn't popular. It wasn't a bandwagon they could jump on like it is now.
Yeah. Yes, the Senate passed the same-sex marriage bill. Updates. Biden praises bipartisan win. Says U.S. Senate on Tuesday passed a bill to protect same-sex and interracial marriage. The bill, known as Respect for Marriage Act, will need final approval from the U.S. House of Representatives before it has Biden's desk. Signed into law, the bipartisan bill would require all 50 states to recognize legal same-sex marriages across the country. Tuesday's vote was part of a final push for congressional Democrats to pass their agenda before Republicans gain majority of the House next year. Vote came amid fear of Democrats that the landmark 2015 Supreme Court case, Orbenthal versus Hodges, which legalized gay marriage, could be overturned following Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. I'd like to point something out on that one, actually. That Orbenthal guy, who actually is from here in Ohio, he tried to run for our state house this year and lost by like a 2/3 majority.
Damn.
Yeah, because he was running in a hardcore red district, and they're like, nah, bro, we don't want you here.
That says a lot.
Mm-hmm. He was also running against like a 2 or 3 term incumbent too, so that's a big deal as well. It's really hard to beat somebody like that that's in there for 4 or 6 years, whatever it is. So anyway, it said while the Respect for Marriage Act would not codify Orbenthal, it would require states that ban same-sex marriages to recognize legal same-sex marriages from other states in the event that Orbenthal is overturned. It would also protect interracial marriages by requiring states to recognize legal marriages regardless of sex, race, ethnicity, or national origin. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like half of this stuff is already in the civil rights legislation that was passed in the 60s.
Yep.
Like, you're just passing stuff that's already been passed and just adding some more on top of it. It's just regulation on top of regulation at that point then.
It's just placating to the fucking left side,
Mm-hmm. And then we got Pelosi claimed
trying to make themselves look good at this point. And it may not go anywhere because they may end up at the end of the day say, oh, well, there's already stuff like this on the book. So, we just wanted money and funding.
Mm-hmm. And then we got Pelosi said that it was, quote, the act stops right-wing extremists. Said Speaker Pelosi said that the Respect for Marriage Act will prevent right-wing extremists from uprooting legal precedent. I mean, the fact that Roe versus Wade was overturned after 49 years and Orbenthal's only been on the books for 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I don't know if that's really legal precedent there, lady. Again, both these, that's the thing. And that everybody act like Roe versus Wade was a fucking law. It wasn't. It was a it was a Supreme Court decision from 1973. Just like how Orban Fall is a decision from 2015. Anyway, so Pelosi wrote on her Twitter account Tuesday that the Senate took a historic step forward by passing the bill, adding that the new law will tear the bigoted, unconstitutional Defense of Marriage Act, which is also done by Democrats, by the way, off the books for good. Said since the Supreme Court's momentous decision overturning Roe, extreme mega Republicans have set their sights on additional freedoms, Pelosi continued on her thread. And in his opinion, Clarence Thomas explicitly called for the court to reconsider the right of marriage equality handed down in its Orban Fall decision. I don't remember saying that, actually. And the thing is, it's like the fact that Clarence Thomas is in an interracial marriage, like, why wouldn't he want that respected?
Yeah, I know. Let's ask him if he has a problem exercising his right to be married to his wife, who is of the opposite race.
Let's see here. It talks about 2015 Orban Fall case. However, given the court's recent undone over 40 years of legal precedent in June by overturning Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs decision. So the House Democrats also celebrated Respect for Marriage Act's passage on Twitter on Tuesday, including Texas Representative Sylvia Garcia, who said that the bill, quote, will provide critical safeguards for same-sex and interracial couples. Pretty sure they already had those. Claimed, quote, I look forward to voting for this bill again in the House so we can send it to POTUS for his signature. What a bunch of jackassery, dude. That's what it is. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Representative Jerry Nadler, a Democrat from New York, who first introduced a version of the bill in 2009, added that he was looking forward to sending the new act to the president's desk. Said today, we take another momentous step in our decades-long fight to protect same-sex and interracial marriage, read a statement by Nadler's Twitter account. By the way, it's the same guy who shit his pants on camera. What was it, like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago now? And then waddled off.
Yep.
He actually, interestingly enough, Nadler won a primary against another Democrat. Can't remember what her name is offhand, but yeah, they got redistricting happening there in New York because of how many people they killed during Corona lockdowns and the subsequent everything else after that. And they lost a congressional seat, and it was basically him and her fighting each other for that seat then. He ended up winning it because it was basically his district to begin with there for like the last 20 years or something. Anywho, it said Utah Senator Mike Lee, along with Oklahoma Senator and fellow Republican James Lankford, raised concerns that the Respect for Marriage Act threatens religious freedoms. Following the bill's passage, in a statement posted on Twitter, Lee expressed discontent that the chamber had struck down his religious amendment on the bill on Tuesday, which would have, quote, prevented the government from retaliating against religious individuals and institutions who do not support same-sex marriages. Said, quote, this is a discouraging development in our country's storied history of protecting the free exercise of religion. And by the way, that's the First Amendment thing I was mentioning in the Discord earlier today, or yesterday, was basically, it's because people always forget, it's not only free speech in the First Amendment, it's also freedom of the press and freedom of religion.
And freedom to assemble and redress your government.
Yeah,
redress your grievances to your government.
Yes, exactly. And nobody ever does that last one. They never do the redress of grievances because nobody even understands what redress of grievances is. By the way, it's basically just taking a piece of paper and be like, this is all the problems I have with your ass. Deal with this. So, yeah. It's like, this is why we've had enough of your shit here, people. We want you gone from office. Anywho. So the Senate also struck down an amendment proposed by Lankford, who wrote on Twitter Tuesday night that the bill isn't about equality, it's about making some people's rights more important than others. Lankford said, I voted against the bill because it will lead to violations of Americans' constitutional right to live their faith. And I do not disagree with that at all, dude. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So... Anyway, so the Senate's bill that passed Tuesday does not include a provision that states religious organizations will not be required to perform same-sex marriages, ceremonies, or provide facilities for such celebrations. Lankford argued that the chamber's floor earlier that day that the current provision was too broad without the additional amendment, and worried religious organizations would have a target on them under this new law. And of course, you got Biden praising the crap is what it is. So... yeah, it's, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely. I think that's the problem with our government in a nutshell. Is, as I was saying in the pre-chat, you have, having done work here at the state level for the past 4 years or so many of these bills that General Assembly's try to push through, it's so much doublespeak in them, or it's just so vaguely written. It's like, dude, you could file all kinds of frivolous lawsuits over anything if you want to. And until it gets struck down somehow, like, it's just going to keep going. So, I don't know.
They like bait, though.
I mean, the thing is, there's been an attack, from what I've seen personally, there's been an attack on Christianity in this country for at least the last, 5 years or so. And there's definitely been, probably more like a couple decades, actually. And, especially the last 10 years or so, there's definitely been a targeted attack where as long as you're white, you can basically be hit with anti-white racism is what it is. Even by other white people, for that matter, which is even sadder. I can experience that firsthand, actually. I was the target of that earlier this year. So, but yeah, it's sad. It's disgusting. And again, it goes back to more division of our country. I think personally, and as I titled this, I think it's going to lead to more censorship, more division, and eventual lawsuits is what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's going to be one of those kind of things where it's like, okay, do I want to file a lawsuit myself? Or is it going to be somebody else is going to do I think it's going to, I think it's going to be a lot of random institutions that's going to file a bunch of different lawsuits over this whole thing. Like, it ain't going to need to be people like me is what it is. It's just like, okay, cool. If somebody was like, oh, we got a class action going, you want to join it? I'm like, maybe. So, I don't know. It just, again, it goes back to that slippery slope fallacy. Everybody said, okay, gay marriage, this, whatever the case be. And then all of a sudden it was, led us to the point where we're at now, where it's, you got to let the kids be transitioned and stuff like that. And don't even talk about it kind of shit. So I'm not saying this is going to lead to that, but I don't know, man. There's been that slippery slope for a long, long time.
Yeah. And with the government and everything, it's hard to tell anymore because they got so many fucking agendas that we don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
They may be at face value saying this, but they got 100 different things that they're going to plan if whatever passes. Or if they get their way just to slide us on something. It's like opening the fucking floodgates for horrible shit.
Well, it's like even going back to, I think it was last year, or maybe the end of 2020, you had the people that make up the leadership of GLAAD coming out and being like, this is why we need 50% representation in every single show across Hollywood. It's like, bro, there's not that many gay and trans people out there. It's just a fact.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm kind of wondering, honestly, going back to the fact they said Nadler had that one in 2009. It's like, were they the ones that wrote that shit? Because that's the thing. I mean, you look at most gun control in this country, and it's written by anti-gunners. The shit that they were trying to pass here after Dayton, mm-hmm. It was copy and pasted Bloomberg stuff. It was him and Mom's Main Action wrote that crap and passed it to lawmakers to submit. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same way here for some corporate lobbying thing for, some gay rights group or something like that did it like a decade ago. So I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know the truth of that one, honestly, sadly. But yeah, it really wouldn't surprise me if it was, though, honestly. And, it's going to be interesting to see if this passes out of the House or not. It'll be interesting to see if the same 47 people that were on it before were like, okay, yeah, we're cool with this now again. So, I don't know. I think only time will tell. But, I've talked to people before that live overseas and stuff like that, and they were discussing how, hey, how do we get to where essentially like Europe is or like Scotland is with their censorship stuff? And it's like, well, this is one step forward in that, honestly.
Yep.
It's like now all of a sudden you got, thought police coming out of nowhere and being like, oh, you said some disparaging comments about some trans person on Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case be, and now you're going to go to jail for hate speech laws or something like that. And I think that's where we're heading, honestly, sadly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's
again power and control.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And I mean, you look at who's making up all this shit right now. It's literally people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, or older for that matter, in most cases. And even the younger ones are like late 20s, early 30s, honestly. Most of them are like, I would say early 50s at this point, honestly, are pretty close to that. Or even like early 60s for that matter in most cases. And again, these are the same people that have been in there for decade after decade, just bullshitting and don't want a real job is what it is. Then, of course, you got Bernie Sanders talking the other day about the whole railway strike and being all like, oh, but I'm going to push forward this thing. And if I don't get my way, I'm not going to vote yes on this thing. And it was basically just like, here's a week of sick leave. And it's like, that's not what they want, guy. They want actual like 9 to 5 hours, not, hey, you're on shift for like 20 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
But that guy's a fucking clown, man. Like, oh my god.
They all are.
Yeah. I remember him talking about bread lines back in the day. You ever seen that video?
Probably.
Yeah, it was back in the 80s, I think, because I remember Bernie Sanders, and it was before he took office or whatever originally. He and his wife had gone to like, what was the fall of the USSR or something like that for their honeymoon. Yeah. And he was in some like classroom or something there talking to some dude on camera, and he's like, and this is why bread lines are a good thing. And was talking about how it's like, because people are eating. And it's like, you are, how the fuck did you ever get in office, old man?
I remember that, yeah.
Like, my God. And again, like, even, like, honestly, the saddest part is, even if we go back 2 years right now, a lot of the yes votes on this wouldn't have even been there to be yes votes, because they would have been tossed out of office if we actually had legit things in place right now. Because you had, in the 2020 primaries, you had Sanders, Warren, Harris, Booker, Klobuchar, and I'm trying to think. I think there's one more that was in the U.S. Senate at the time that was a Democrat. And then there was also Jay Inslee, who wouldn't be governor of Washington State right now. You would have had Tim Ryan not be a congressman right now, et cetera, because they would have already been tossed out for running for higher office. And that's why we need that kind of legislation on the books right now. Like, it's stupid to allow these people to run for the presidency and then be like, oh, no, I'm going to jump out early enough to where I can run for office again at a lower level then. Like, nah, bro, you're gone.
Yep.
Period.
100% agree.
And it'd be the same thing even going to the Republican side from 2016. You would have had that idiot John Kasich no longer be a governor of Ohio at the time. He would have been kicked out then. And he would have had, I think it was Mary Taylor was his lieutenant governor or something like that. She would have been governor then for a couple of years. And that's how it should be, honestly. It's like, nah, bro, you're trying to run for a higher office. Get the hell out or we're going to kick you out. So, I don't know. It infuriates me, honestly. And I think it's because I'm seeing the writing on the wall in this country, honestly. And it's like the downfall of our society, unfortunately. I don't like to go full black pill on a lot of this stuff, but like, I don't know.
No, yeah, sometimes it's hard not to fucking see it and acknowledge it because it's just right in your fucking face.
Well, and that's the thing. And like I said, like, nothing against Matt. I think he is 100% correct with the actual legislation, how it's written. It's just the fact that it's like, okay, but then you have this vague shit in there about like AGs potentially being able to sue people for whatever. And it's like, okay, what the hell is that even about then?
Yep.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, and again, it goes back to the doublespeak of how a lot of this stuff is written. And when you realize, like, you start breaking down how it's actually written, you're like, oh, fuck. Because this does not go well for people, man. And that's the thing I feel right now. Like honestly, I'm gonna be dead honest right now on this cast tonight. Like, you look at people like that Maxwell Frost kid that got in Congress the next go around out of Florida here in 2022 midterms here. who's a buddy of David Hogg's. Those are the kind of people who are going to be the future Hitler in America.
I know.
Like, this is a scary fact. Like, if we let these fuckers continue to maintain power, they're going to put us against the fucking wall at some point. And I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, because them fuckers are, quote unquote, our future leaders, you know? These younger fucking retards that are just brainwashed.
They're just the college commies is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's even like the guy that was on Honda's show last week. As we call him East Coast Corey now. And I didn't even realize that dude was only like 22 or 23. And that makes so much sense now. Because it's like, bro, you don't even have full frontal lobe development at that point. Not until 25.
He was that young.
Yeah, well, that's what Honda was saying. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense, honestly.
He looks young, but I didn't realize he was that young.
Like, that's the thing, though. I mean, your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you're 25, and even then, like, you're still kind of wet behind the ears.
Oh, yeah.
And to think that, like, that Frost kid is just now 25, and it's like, bro, like, you've been indoctrinated for, like, 13 years of your fucking life, at least. So, like, it's a scary fact. It's a scary thought to think about right now. And it would be interesting to see if what is now the squad actually becomes like this weird, just like commie block pretty soon. Or they just add that kid in there and a couple other people or whatever now. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly. Although, to be fair, if you look at Cortez herself, she'll sit there and act like she's all progressive and stuff like that. And like, oh, I'm all for the communist crap, whatever the case be. And then she'll vote with like the Democrat Party line like 100% of the time, right at the tail end of it. There was a bunch of votes in, I think it was either 2020 or 2021, where she was like grandstanding on the podium and stuff like that on the House floor there. And was like, I am totally against this. This is a bunch of bullshit, and we should not pass this, and la da 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 da. And then it was like right after they were doing the actual like voting thing, where it's like, okay, you need to submit your name of like as like yes or no, whatever the case be. She just like walks up to the podium person and is like, yeah, I'm a yes vote, and was trying to be all sly about it and shit. And the same, I think it was the same thing with like Omar or one of those other people too as well. Like they were just like basically like trying to be all like, oh, I'm totally against this, and then they vote for it is what it is.
Yeah, they're all crooked as the day of long.
Yeah, they're just fucking two faces is what it is, man. They're some of the biggest scumbags in our entire country is what the problem is right now.
Yep.
And again, this is why I would love to see a 20th Amendment oddity keys on the books right now, where it's like, yeah, if you're going to be submitting legislation or you're going to be voting for legislation that infringes the Constitution, the Second Amendment, whatever it is, you're done. You're gone. And if you're running on that kind of platform, your campaign is done, period. And I think that would be the best way for this country to move forward, and we would be a hell of a lot more constitutional nation after the fact. But I don't know. I know a lot of people would say, oh, you're trying to deny people's ability to run for office or vote or whatever it is. It's like, there should be some of those people that have their shit denied at this point because they're too fucking dumb to not vote for like retarded people is what it is. That are trying to screw over the rest of our rights is what it ends up being.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I fear what's going to come, unfortunately. And, you know, I am prepared, though, is what it is.
I think we're
as much as I can be. As much as I can be mentally. I need to get more physical is what it is right now, come the new year. But, yeah, right now I think I'm in a good place when it comes to if things start to fall. So, not that I want that to happen. I really don't. I really hope we can stay as a country. But
I would say I'm in a good place as far as, you know, prepared. I'm not physically, you know, I do need. I need to start working out, and I have been eating better.
Mm-hmm.
I quit a lot of sugary shit, so I'm doing slow steps, but I'm as prepped as I can be at the moment. Financial, it's just not cheap, and I unfortunately haven't been prepping as long as Matt has. But there's more that can be done because I'm terrified about what's coming in the future.
Well, I mean, I think anymore, like, and this is something I've talked about several episodes now, is there's a lot of people that have zero skill set. Like, even just having a skill set at this point is a good thing. Like whether it be knowing how to do anything, welding, forging, any of that shit is going to be necessary. Like that's going to be one of the big things, I think, especially like if you're a car mechanic or something and you know how to like fix vehicles and stuff, especially like older vehicles, you're going to be in high supply when things go to shit.
Well, yeah, I have skill sets like that. Don't get me wrong. But
or even just like food procuring, food preserving, all the stuff like that, because that's another thing people don't ever think about, you know?
Yep.
Like all the canning and everything else that we've lost for generations, and we're trying to make ourselves at this point again because we don't have that skill set in our family line anymore.
No, I agree.
Or even just growing a garden for that matter. Like I know what it takes to do that because I tried to do that several years now. And it is a lot of hard work, especially the larger you get.
Oh, God, yeah. People don't realize, they think, oh, growing a garden, it's fun and easy. No, it's a lot of work, especially when I first did my garden years ago. I was in an area where there's not a lot of pollinators. Mm-hmm. So I had to go out there and hand pollinate everything every day. All my squash, watermelons, zucchinis, fucking, you name it. I was out there hand pollinating it. Tomatoes. But now, since I moved further out into the country, I have more pollinators around, such as bees and butterflies. I got a shit ton of butterflies out here, so it'd be so bad out here.
Yeah, the first year we tried to do a garden, I think was like 2018 maybe. And we were doing a box garden then, and it was we tried to do a bunch of corn in it with some other stuff, and I don't know if it's just because we don't have that many bees around or what it is. Most of them are like yellow jackets, it seems like, anymore. And yeah, that corn did not want to grow in at all. Like it was like a little bit. The ears were teeny, and we didn't end up not even using it because it was just basically cow feed at that point, or some kind of other animal feed for that matter.
Yep.
And we just ended up tossing the stalks. But then it was the next year we ended up we had some dude plow out our other area there, and found out we had like a bunch of remnants from what used to be a barn there, and it was like a bunch of glass jars and rocks and everything else like that. And we spent probably 4 days picking just big ass fucking boulders and big chunks of like brick and stuff from the foundation of what was left of the barn out of that area to plant stuff. And oh my God, I almost passed out dead on the ground that day, the one day.
Damn.
It was so bad. Because we're talking about like June heat in Ohio, and yeah, it was like 80 something degrees with like 8% humidity or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just horrible. And then we finally did get stuff planted though. We got a bunch of bunch of watermelon planted. Went out a few weeks later when it was actually producing and found like a couple of them were busted open and eaten on it. We're like, what's busting open and eating on them? Turns out it was deer. They would just go up in there and hoof stomp the damn thing and then just munch on it. We got a few good ones out of there though. And I'll tell you what, I'm trying to remember what kind it is now. Because there's about like 4 or 5 different kinds of watermelon you can buy to actually produce. And I forget, it was, I'm trying to think now. Like sweet something, I think is what it was called. Like sweet red something. It was so good. Like it was some of the most delicious watermelon I've ever had in my entire life. Because it was just like, it was like super, super, it was like, it almost tasted like it had like pure sugar in it basically, but without any sugar. And yeah, those actually grew pretty decently. They were more like they were more like what you would expect to be like a round little like head-shaped watermelon essentially. And then there were some other ones we got too that were more of like the traditional like long ones you would expect for like a family picnic or something. Those weren't bad either, but the other ones were definitely much better though. And yeah, we probably got like a dozen or so of those out of that within a couple months time span. But unfortunately, like I said, the deer got to a few of them before we did, unfortunately, and it's kind of sucks.
No, it does, especially when you put on hard work and you're trying to reap what you sow. Literally.
Well, then we were also trying to grow cantaloupe too, and we're pretty sure it was also the deer was eating on it because they would come and it would be right as it was budding, they would bite off the fucking heads. So it would never be able to produce then. I'm like, damn it, I want some freaking cantaloupe.
I love good cantaloupe.
Yeah. Well, the problem I see anymore too with a lot of this, like, I don't know if you know what like heat boxing, I think is what it's called, is with fruit and stuff like that. So they'll take, it's like strawberries and stuff like that. It's stuff that's not pure ripe or whatever. It's like, just like it needs maybe like another week or so to get like ripe and stuff like that. They'll put it in like this pure heat thing in like some kind of greenhouse area or whatever. And it like fake ripens it. And so when you eat that, you get that at the stores and eat it, it just tastes so bitter.
Yeah.
Because it's not producing enough. They don't give it enough time to produce is what it is. And so they're like heat treating it to where it like blooms faster, but it's not blooming. It's just bitter crap is what it is you're buying.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it's called either.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we got some strawberry plants a few years ago. They didn't produce very well, unfortunately, but we got a couple little ones off of them. And oh my God, those things were the sweetest strawberries I've ever eaten in my entire life.
Yeah,
and it's because they were able to naturally grow.
Anything you can grow yourself is so much better. Like my wife refuses to eat any tomatoes if I don't grow them because when I grew tomatoes, they were just so fucking good.
That was another thing we were growing.
Fake and unripe, basically.
We would have ones that were like partially green, partially red, and we went to wait another day or whatever. And we came out the next day, and the damn deer went after them again.
Yeah,
you had bites of a bunch of them that were all bad now. Or it was raccoons. I think we also have around here that was dealing with them as well. So, but yeah, it's just come on, man. Like we want to eat the food, not you guys. Right. We didn't plant this garden for y'all.
I tell you, the last year I grew a garden. I had so much squash, dude. I couldn't give it away enough.
Yeah, that was another thing that we had quite a bit of.
I would get out there and I'd hand pollinate it every fucking day. Anytime there was new blooms, new female flowers, I'd get the male flowers and do all the hand pollinating. And I tell you, all that hard work I put in, it paid off in dividends because in the okra too. Oh my God, dude, the fucking okra I was growing, the stalks alone were fucking like 6-7 feet tall by the end of it. And I had so much okra. Oh my God, it was all so fucking delicious. Everything I grew was amazing. And the watermelon, I got 3 good watermelons. The last 2, I don't know really what went wrong. Maybe not enough watering. But that first watermelon, dude, was the absolute best watermelon I've ever had in my life. It was so fucking juicy and sweet. Oh my God, dude. It was just great. And zucchini, I think I got 1 or 2 zucchinis. My problem was when I planted everything, I put a lot together. I didn't space it out enough, and everything was just fighting for the nutrients and
that's how
the nitrogen and everything. What you live and learn. I mean, that's part of doing anything. You live and learn. You find out what works and what doesn't work. And I found out that you can't really put all that shit together. So, but now I have bigger property to where I can space it out. When I had it before, I was just so limited on space because I was on like, I don't know. It was like not even, it was like maybe half an acre, if that. And most of it was just buildings. So I didn't have a lot of space to actually spread my wings and stretch out, so to speak. So, and Christopher Reed, I noticed he said that he's a mechanic and can do old school carpentry. and the shit hits the fan scenario, dude, you're gonna be a hot commodity. That's like I can weld, I can do a lot of building, whether it's with metal or wood. So, not saying I'd be a hot commodity, but to an extent, I think I would be. I can do a lot of stuff that is being lost in the younger generation.
Yeah, it's interesting when you see those elephants eat them giant pumpkins from the fairs and stuff like that.
I know, it's awesome.
And then we also, obviously, one of the side ones for this was a panda caught playing in the snow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly enough, when you talk about endangered species, if it wasn't for America, or if it wasn't for human beings, pandas would be extinct a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because we help produce their food sources and we produce them, basically. That's what it is in these zoos. And yeah, it's just crazy. But yeah, it's interesting to see that kind of stuff. I've also gotten really into, I don't know if you've ever seen the like ASMR Korean street food channels and stuff on YouTube there. They'll do a bunch of different foods and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. It's a lot of stuff that we would actually have over here that would be like the Americanized Chinese food and stuff like that, but it's all like Korean dishes or Thai dishes or whatever then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's definitely one of those enjoyable ones. Yeah, like I was saying with the elephants eating the pumpkins and stuff. I think this is one of the ones from here in Ohio, actually, where you had the big old male elephant eating like just a decent sized pumpkin in like one shot.
Yeah, it's like, you ever seen like the hippopotamuses fucking go to town on watermelons? Like, I'm talking about.
I don't think I ever have, actually.
Watermelons that are twice the size of our heads, man. That they just crunch it like it's nobody's business, and just it's actually kind of cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, nature's an interesting thing, though, which actually does bring me back to something I was mentioning on Honda's panel the other day. I don't think we ever did get to that discussion of what animals we could actually beat in a fight. So apparently, I guess there was a company that did some kind of a experiment or whatever between British and American people, and it was different animals that they could beat in fights. And of course, you got let's see here. Yeah, it was which of the following animals, if any, do you think you could beat in a fight if you were unarmed? And we got rat, house cat, goose, a mid-sized dog, eagle, large dog, chimpanzee, king cobra, kangaroo, wolf, crocodile, gorilla, lion, elephant, and grizzly bear. I would say everything up to probably eagle. And then maybe kangaroo I could probably take as well. I wouldn't fuck with anything else, though, after that, though. Even a goose are fucking scary, though. Those things will peck at you like a motherfucker.
Yeah, kangaroos, because they, especially those ones that like fucking rip this shit, man. They look like they'd fuck you up in a heartbeat.
Well, I remember that one video from the guy who was trying to save his dog, and I think it was Australia, and he just walked up and popped the kangaroo in the face.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that to me was like, yeah, I could see something like that, dude. You just, they don't think you're going to attack them, whatever the case be, then you just sock them out of nowhere.
You ever seen that video? I don't know where it was at. It was probably Florida. But that guy's dog gets taken by a little alligator, and he goes into the water and fucking rescues his dog that's underwater.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, the thing is, my thing on this would be actually between the rat and the house cat. Depending on if you have a rat, and a cat, it might be a situation where you just grab the rat by the tail and fling it towards the cat to eat. Depending on the size of the rat, obviously. Because I've seen some big fucking rats.
Oh yeah, like in New York.
There was one. There was one that was obviously like a fake. It was supposed to be like the Baltimore rat or whatever, and it was these cops like beating this giant rat that was at least like the size of a human being, if not bigger. But no, there are definitely some. Like I've seen some in New York and other states like that are, or specifically New York City and other major cities like that are legitimately the size of house cats, if not the size of dogs.
Yep.
And nah, I'm running my ass in the other direction at that fucking size. Fuck that. That's some master splinter level size right there, and I ain't okay with that, man.
Nope.
It's like I'll just throw you the pizza. You can take it back to the turtles, and we're all good, man. Go feed your sons, man. But anyway. Yeah, there's some crazy ass animals though. Actually I found out a couple years ago from my neighbor because I was picking berries out in our bushes and stuff like that we have prop up every year. And they were like, yeah, he probably shouldn't be picking that close because there was a family of raccoons over there the other day. And it was like mom and a bunch of babies and stuff like that. And she was lucky I didn't get attacked. That's what she was telling. My mother was like, yeah, she's like, yeah, you're lucky your son didn't get attacked by them raccoons over there. So, I don't know. I would never want to fuck with a coon in unarmed combat, though. Those things are crazy fuckers, man.
Raccoons, yeah, they're mean shit.
These same neighbors, they were telling us a story. I'm going to tell us on Honda's chat on Saturday, too, as well. They were talking about 2 interactions that their friends had with raccoons that were, they could tell that these things were intelligent as hell. So the one, it was their like daughter-in-law or something. There was a raccoon outside her place in the like city of Canton areas where she was living at the time or whatever, in like a 2nd-story apartment there where it would be like almost like a duplex kind of house where you have like that 2nd staircase up to the top or whatever there for like the back apartment kind of deal. And that's where she was living at. And she noticed she was going to go to work one morning. She noticed there's a raccoon outside, like just fucking around or whatever in the trash cans and stuff. So she goes to grab a broom to like shoo it away, walks out the door and just starts like smacking at it with the broom and stuff like that. This raccoon reaches up with his little paws, grabs this broom out of her hand and just flings it across the porch there of their deck. And she immediately was like in shock, shut the screen door, locked it, shut the main door, locked it, and called into work and was like, I'm not coming into work today. And then it was another friend of theirs had a cabin in, I forget what part of the state it was, or it might have been West Virginia even. But yeah, they would have problems with raccoons and other animals going into the cabin and trying to get like breaking into their place to get food and stuff like that. So they would take a big metal trash can whenever they had left the area and were packing up all their stuff in like seal-proof bags and things like that. And then they had a pond there. They would take the trash can and tie it to a rope and then toss it out into the pond so it would basically sink down and couldn't be got at or whatever. So a couple weeks later, they had come back to the place for like a family trip or whatever. And as they're pulling in, they see this big fat ass raccoon sitting on its ass, front paws, with the rope in its hand, yanking the freaking can out of the pond.
Jesus, man.
Yeah. And they were like, what the fuck? So, yeah, there's some crazy, those animals are crazy smart, apparently. And if they really want something to eat, those trash pandas will get something to eat, man. They really are little bandits.
They are.
And I'll tell you what, though, if you've ever seen some baby raccoons, they are some cute little babies.
Oh, I know.
But unfortunately, they can get the rabies, and that's never a good thing. And that's one thing you don't want to have is a random rabbit or raccoon attacking your ass.
Oh, God, no.
And that is exactly why that's one animal. If I was going to add to that list of stuff, I would put that on there, and that's one that I would never fuck with an unarmed combat. Because I'd be afraid it's going to attack and bite me and do some crazy damage or whatever. Yeah, nothing else is going to claw the shit out of you.
And it's not too obvious when they have rabies, kind of like skunks. Because skunks, they're nocturnal. So
that's another one, too. I would not fight a skunk unarmed. Even armed, I might not fight a skunk.
Oh, hell no, because them bitches will spray you and then, you're gagging and can't see your brain.
That's your real concealed carry right there.
Right. I had a buddy years ago. A neighbor called him and said that they had some skunk or two trapped in their barn. He'd come, get it and take it somewhere and release it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't want to kill it. So he went over there and he trapped it and he covered it up with a blanket. No problem. He gets it all the way to where he's going to release it, uncovers it, opens the door, and it won't move. It's scared.
Yep.
So he grabs the cage and kind of lifts it up to, nudge it out. And he was real close to it and it sprayed him all in the face. And he's like dripping, just dripping. That's how close he was. Well, since then, he cannot smell like stinky smells. It's like one time he goes in his icebox and he opens it up and pulls something out and he's sniffing it all to hell. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to see if this is bad or not. Here, smell it. And I'm like, ugh. I'm like, how do you not smell that? So apparently that did something to his fucking sniffer. But yeah, fuck skunks, raccoons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely some crazy shit for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing though, like nature is a scary beast in of itself. Like there's a lot of animals that I would never want to fuck with, especially without a gun of some kind. Huh?
I said possums are mean as shit too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, most animals, especially when you have them in a corner or something like that. I mean, hell, even cats will attack the shit out of you. There was years ago, this is probably a couple decades now, actually, when I was in my younger years, we had a cat, called it Boots. He was a tuxedo cat. He was a fucking cute cat. Love that cat. He definitely had a second home someplace else in the town next to mine because he would leave for weeks at a time and never be seen, and then he'd come back and then be like, oh, what's going on? And yeah, it was before, obviously, GoPros. If we had a GoPro on him, I think we could have found his second family is what it is. But
that's funny.
His mom, she was also a Tux cat. And it was when he was a little kitten. They had my aunt and uncle had brought him over here because they were moving out of their old place. And they were trying to bring the whole family over for us to take care of or whatever. But they could only get her and him. And so they had brought the two of them over there. And it was the day that they had done that, the neighbor's dog came running over and was all like barking and was like trying to like sniff it, little Bootsy. And this mama cat looks at this fucking dog square in the eyes, flips up, and just claws the shit out of this dog's face. Like it was like some ninja, like whoosh, just like one swipe basically, and that dog went flying. We were all like, holy shit. Unfortunately, she disappeared a couple days later. We think she went to go get the rest of her kittens and never made it. So, yeah, it was too bad. But yeah, he was here for a long time though. I think he lived about, I don't know, 10 years or so, give or take. And we like I said, he would disappear for probably like days to weeks, if not a couple months at a time, and then eventually come back. And I forget what he ended up dying from, if it was just being like slightly old and an outdoor cat, or if it was that some car had hit him or whatever. I think it was some car had hit him maybe, or something is what it was. So that was an unfortunate thing. And you know, that's the thing with animals, though. They can't live forever, and you know, we love them while they're here, and it's the best we can do. And you know, I think they provide us a lot of love too. And at the end of the day, you know, sometimes they will be, you know, man's best friend, and sometimes they will, you know, be the opposite of that thing. So anyway, since we seem to have lost Corey, which I assume was either his internet or something else popping off, but yeah, I think we'll just end it with that then, if that be the case, because we've pretty much talked about what we're going to talk about today anyway, and we're almost an hour and a half in here, so I'm getting pretty tired. It's almost 1 a.m. my time, so gonna get some sleep here. I think I'm fighting something. If I don't do a 2A cast this week, it's because of that. Honestly, Mom's been sick all week, and I think she's starting to give me some shit now, whatever the fuck she has. But I don't know if it's corona or if it's seasonal flu or bronchitis or God who knows how or what it is at this point. It could be like 10 different things, honestly. But yeah, she's fighting something. I'm trying to keep her spirits up and make sure she can fight this off, whatever the case be, and try not to get it myself if that be the case. But of course, with my issues, I'm always getting stuff. So, and if I get it, it's going to be like 10 times worse because of my autoimmune issues and stuff like that. So, anyway, but yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do the 2A cast on Friday. I'll be most likely making a special announcement in the next Grandstand sometime tomorrow, either afternoon or evening. So look forward to that one because it is very special, and it has to do with what's going to be happening here in a couple of years in our country. And if we can stay together for a country at that point, you know, there is a reason why I titled that My Hat is in the Ring, because that's what the announcement will be about, honestly. And that's all I'm saying about the end of the day. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you all in the next one.